Hey friends, welcome back to the channel with another movie reaction. Today it is a movie that won the poll over on Patreon. It's Arrival. I know it's starring Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. I believe I saw a trailer or two back when it came out. But yeah, don't know too much about the film other than I think there's aliens and they try to interact with them, try to talk to them. But yeah, don't know much about it. Excited to get into it. Haven't seen Jeremy Renner or Amy Adams in anything else other than superhero films, so like Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and then all the MCU movies Jeremy Renner was in. So yeah, interested to see what they're like in non-superhero films. Let's get started. If you want to watch the full reaction, you can check out Patreon in the link in the description below. Let's go. Baby.
I remember moments in the middle.
I love you. I hate you!
And this was the end.
Come back to me. You come back to me.
Oh.
There are days that define your story beyond your life. Like the day they arrived.
In terms of storytelling, you don't show a gun if you're not gonna use it at some point. So you don't show her daughter dying and not use it for some reason later on. Is that Forrest Whitaker?
I'm Colonel G.T. Weber. I have something I need you to translate for me.
Is that?
Yes.
I can tell you that it's impossible to translate from an audio file. I would need to be there to interact with them.
It's not a negotiation.
She's not negotiating.
Your chance to go.
You mentioned Berkeley. Are you going to ask Danvers next? Before you commit to him, ask him the Sanskrit word for war and its translation.
Are they picking her up now?
He says it means an argument. What do you say it means?
A desire for more cows.
Pack your bags. Ian is a theoretical physicist from Los Alamos. You'll be reporting to me, but you'll be working with him. What do they want? Where are they from?
And beyond that, how did they get here? Are they capable of faster than light travel?
How about we just talk to them before we start throwing math problems at them?
This is why you're both here.
Interesting. This begs up a question. Should the military be the first to respond, to make contact? Wait, what? Oh, the camera work there. A burb?
Am I fired?
You're better than the last guy.
I'm listening like I'm gonna figure it out.
What's that for?
A visual aid. Look, I'm never going to be able to speak their words if they are talking. But they might have some sort of written language or basis for. I'm human. What are you? Human. Human.
You're gonna teach them your name and Ian's. These are all grade school words.
So, first we need to make sure that they understand what a question is. Then we need to clarify the difference between a specific you and a collective you. And biggest of all, we need to have enough vocabulary with them that we understand their answer.
She knows what she's doing.
Get it?
Louise, I am Louise.
Is that a new symbol? I can't tell.
I don't know, I think it's a symbol for human again. Just has a little curl on the end. Maybe to indicate a question.
Oh, what?
Dr. Banks?
Now that's a proper introduction. Louise. I am Louise.
See about that? Yeah.
Ian.
Bob.
I think those are their names.
So what are we gonna call them?
I don't know.
I was thinking Abbott and Costello.
Why is it making her think about her daughter? Ian walks.
Passing up a second communications channel. Like their ship or their bodies, their written language has no forward or backward direction.
So they have no concept of time? Or a different concept of time?
A complex...
And who are those two people?
It's you and Dad. The show is called Mommy and Daddy Talk to Animals.
Who's Daddy? Where's Daddy?
Okay.
What does it say?
Offer weapon.
Offer weapon?
We don't know if they understand the difference between a weapon and a tool. I go back in. Right away, we go back in and we clear this up.
It's more complicated.
How is it more complicated than that?
China and Russia are off the grid. They aren't speaking to anyone. Whatever they learned in their last session has them spooked.
Oh. Damn. What did you bring? Those explosives? Oh.
What's he doing?
That's the first time that's happened. What? Holy crap.
What is that?
Gonna break through the glass? Oh! I was so right about the military not being a good idea to have around.
We need to go back in and we need to explain to them that this wasn't our fault.
we can't
have
go
to
back
tell them.
inside.
We have to. As long as they stay, we have to stay.
Oh.
Well, they're not leaving.
What's this term for that thing? Like a technical term? Where we make a deal and we both get something out of it.
Like a win-win.
More sciencey than that.
If you want science, call your father.
Ian Science? Too bad you didn't meet him before.
Take a look at this section. It seems to be talking about time. There's symbol for time. Is everywhere. Stop focusing on the ones. Look at the zeros. How much of this is data? How much of it is negative space? 0.0833 recurring. Perhaps you'd like that as a fraction.
Why? Hand it out to us in pieces. Why not just give it all over?
Well, what better way to force us to work together for once?
Even if I did believe you, how in the world are you going to get anybody else to play along? What, trade?
It's a non-zero sum game.
Non-zero sum game.
Hmm.
That's it.
Oh, what? She's gonna get in, and it's gonna carry her back up. Is she on the other side?
Costello. Where's Abbott?
Was it injured by the C4? She has the weapon? Well, that would have been better. A better message to send. 3,000 years?
I
don't understand. Who is this child?
What? What? That... Wait, that's... Ian is the dad and she's the... Wait, what? No, that's not... She sees the future? So that hasn't happened yet? Wait, what? Weapon opens time. Wait, so she's looking into the future to see what it means?
I can read it.
Whoa.
If you learn it when you really learn it, you begin to perceive time the way that they do. So you can see what's to come.
Wow.
Time.
The only reason why I'm here is to meet you in person. All because you reached out to me on my private number.
Your private number, General, I don't know your private number.
Now you know.
Hello. I needed a goddamn phone.
I will never forget what you said. You told me my wife's dying words.
Drop it!
It's done. I'm done.
Has announced in an emergency press conference that China is standing down.
China is stating that all
She has her daughter knowing she'll die of a rare genetic disease.
You know what surprised me the most? It wasn't meeting them. It was meeting you.
I forgot how good it felt to be held by you.
I knew that the daughter was important from the start. There's a saying, I don't know exactly what it is or where it's from. It's just saying don't show, like, you don't show a gun unless it's gonna go off later, and that's it's talking about like storytelling, and they wouldn't have shown the daughter early on, like one of the first things that they showed us, if she wasn't gonna be important later. And full circle, she decides to have this child even though she knows she's gonna die. She knows she's going to tell Ian at some point. Oh. And the aliens will need our help in 3,000 years? There's a lot of unanswered questions, but what a fascinating film. Like, it wasn't filled with that much like action or anything, but the basic idea of it is just so captivating. Trying to communicate with aliens who you don't understand, and the tension of so many other countries trying to figure it out as well, and then some of them wanting to escalate things. And I always love films where you feel like you have to watch them a couple of times because you just keep finding out new details that heighten your appreciation for it. Get Out was great at that, Inception, Interstellar, and I feel like this is definitely a film where watching it more than once really helps, adds to it, because you can catch all the little details. I haven't had a chance to fully do that just yet with this film. Danny, the animated heroine, has edited this movie, and but I really want to see how many hints were just dropped at exactly what the heptapods were trying to communicate. And one thing I do remember is that in one of the areas, one of the heptapods said, there is no time. So at the time, I'm like, what? We're running out of time until what exactly? What's about to happen? But in reality, what they were trying to say was that time doesn't exist. So there is no time is actually there is no such thing as time, which that's such a cool little detail. And I'm sure the film is chock full of things like that. And I can't wait to one day be able to go back and check it all out, knowing what actually happens. And I mean, the film just makes you so invested in what's going on. It's really great. When we first saw those circles, I was like trying to figure out what they meant. Like, it was even remotely possible that I could figure it out only by like staring at it really hard. But I was just like, wait, what is that? Does that mean? I'm like, no, there's no way I could possibly figure it out. Because it's a fictional language in fiction. And I mean, yeah, the details were so great. Everything Abbott and Costello wrote was in a circle because they have transcended the concept of before and after. There is no beginning and end of a sentence. The sentence just is. And yeah, Abbott and Costello, by the way, is such a nice name for those two heptapods. I don't really know too much about them in real life, but it was a nice little reference. Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner were great in this film. I think I'd only seen them in superhero movies before this, and as Lois Lane and Clint Barton, and so I don't know that those are the most demanding in terms of acting performances. I'm not going to say that they definitely weren't bad as Lois Lane and Clint Barton, but I feel like as Luis and Ian, they really got to show off their acting chops, and yeah, really enjoyed them in this film. Clint Barton, Ian, Jeremy Renner definitely plays a completely different person than what I've seen him before. And so yeah, back to the story. This universal language has some pretty strong implications, right? Because if people can read it and read it well, they can figure out things before they even happen. And when this type of thing shows up in fiction, it always makes me really think about it really, really hard. Because how much does having access to the future have an effect on the future? Because in many forms of fiction, we have different ideas about whether or not time can be affected at all. So maybe in the case of this movie, the timeline is set in stone, and revealing the language to the humans doesn't change anything because that's always what was going to happen. It might change how their society goes, but it never deviates from what was meant to happen. And so yeah, it's really interesting to know that the heptapods knew all along how this would play out, which means we have to examine all their choices very carefully. They knew those military idiots were gonna try to blow them up. They knew Abbott was gonna die. Abbott stayed behind to save Luis and Ian while Costello leaves, so it was sacrificing itself in that moment. And Abbott knew this was all gonna happen, but it came here anyway because this is where Luis was. They must have known that she would be the one to figure it out. And it's really interesting because they also send a bunch of ships to different places, and it could be for a variety of reasons. And I'm sure that each of the countries must have contributed something to the eventual outcome. Even China, who seemed like they were poised to be an imminent threat to these conversations, they played a role, undoubtedly. Because without these tensions rising to such a high level, and Luis finally figuring it out and de-escalating everything, I don't think as many people would take this seriously. We needed as many people as possible involved so that this idea of this language is as widespread as possible. And quite possibly, we needed it not to be in control of... we needed it to be spread across more than just one country, because if only one country had this language, it would be inevitable for one government to use it against another. They still might try, honestly, even though other places have this ability to know the future. But now, even if they do try to do it, others with knowledge of the language would know what they're attempting to do, wouldn't they? And I don't know, it's very interesting to think about. And how does this affect technological advancements? If you can see in the future and see how future technology works, doesn't that mean you can now invent it before it was ready to be invented? I guess if the timeline is fixed, that means you can learn information from the future and cause the future from the present, which, oh wow, okay. I think my brain is gonna start hurting if I think too much more about that. But I guess it's possible that the universal language is not all powerful though, or else the heptapods could have found a more easy way to communicate with the humans. They would have been able to learn the humans' language possibly, but I suppose even if they could communicate more easily, they would have wanted the humans to figure out this language on their own. I don't know. There has to be some limits on it though, right? But yeah, at the very least, humans know that this entity threatens the heptapods 3,000 years from now, which, what could that even be, and what makes humans such good allies? It kind of reminds me of XCOM. It's an incredible strategy game where you fend off alien invasion. I don't want to spoil the ending of the first game, but for those of you who played it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. One of my favorite series ever. Highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out already. I don't think they actually answered what would happen, or who was responsible, or who's... They haven't answered the question that was posed at the end of the first game, though we might have to wait until XCOM 3 for that. XCOM 2 is already out. Anyway, It was really interesting seeing different ways that different cultures learn to communicate as well. The Chinese use mahjong to try to communicate with heptapods. So, of course, since it's a competitive game, the heptapod's ability to communicate is through a competitive lens, which definitely leads to the heightened tension, definitely leads to China wanting to, leading to China's ultimatum and other countries following suit. And yeah, it was just, this movie is just so well thought out. And early on in the movie, when Ian and Luis arrive, and all we can see at the base are like military personnel, I was thinking, like, why is the first point of contact with unknown species always with the military involved, right? I mean, they bring in Luis and Ian, but the military should not be on the front lines of this operation. I'm not saying they shouldn't be like waiting in the wings in case something goes wrong, or if the unknown beings become aggressive, but replying to unknown threats or unknown beings, they're not threats just yet. It allows for idiots like those soldiers to set up that bomb. And throughout the film, I feel like the amount of scientists and linguists we see are dwarfed by the number of military personnel we see at the base. And I think it's easy for me to get frustrated with something like that from my point of view, because I live in the United States. We spend entirely way too much money on the military and the police as well, and we expect them to do more than they've been trained to do, especially the police, because they're sent to deal with like mental health checks, which just a little while ago a kid with autism was shot after his mother called for help. So it's just frustrating. So my anger with the system was showing up a little there, where I was just like, why the heck are shows of force the first reaction to anything? But yeah, I can't believe I've come this far. It's been like 10 minutes and I haven't even talked about the relationship between Ian and Luis though, and their daughter Hannah. It's so fascinating to think about, because all that time, their entire relationship, after they leave the base, Ian and Luis knows what's going to happen in their entire relationship. She's essentially cursed with knowledge, and I don't know, it feels like there's a level of unethicalness for Luis to know that she will have a daughter who will die, and then keep it from Ian until after Hannah's already born. And she knows that telling him will make him leave, but she tells him anyway. It's just, either you be upfront with everything from the start, or you don't tell him ever. But I don't know. I suppose since she saw it, there was no other way it could go because the timeline is fixed. But I don't know. It feels like, I'm assuming everybody who can learn the language, everybody who wants to learn the language can. But if you couldn't, would you feel comfortable dating somebody who could? Like in real life? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I could do that, because... And interestingly enough, Ian, as much as he was involved in this whole operation, he doesn't bother learning the language himself. Like, he doesn't know the fate of him and Luis, or of their daughter, until she tells him. So, there's so much to think about here in this film. And it also relates so strongly to a show I watched last fall, but I don't think I can talk about it without giving away a huge plot point. Shoot. Let me actually look up the... So, Yahya Abdul Mateen II, the show with him, I can say that actually. I can actually say that, I think. Yeah, can I? I don't know. Yeah, a show that he is in dealt heavily with these issues, and I watched it last fall. Anyway. But my point is, would you feel comfortable being with someone who knows everything that's going to happen in your life? They know every argument that's about to happen. They know what you're going to say. And in a sense, you're not risking anything. If you know everything, you're not risking anything in this relationship, because you know how it all works out. And the person who doesn't know has to just go on blind trust that this relationship is worth it. Whereas it feels... There's a completely different power dynamic in that case, I think. And so I'm not sure how I would feel about dating someone like, I don't know. It's insane, right? But yeah, they could find out things about you that you might not be willing to share or not ready to share just yet. Again, depends on how much information you can actually glean from this language. I think everything that Louise sees has to do with herself. Like, she sees herself at different times throughout her life. But the heptapods, on the other hand, know about something 3,000 years into the future. And so unless some of them are capable of living that long, they're able to see beyond the confines of their own lives. So maybe with more practice or a better understanding of the language, it's possible to learn whatever the heck you want from this language. Who knows? But yeah, I've dealt with a lot of different forms of fiction that deal with what happens if you know the future. We have, this isn't really a spoiler, we have Rehoboam in Westworld Season 3. We have the show I mentioned earlier that if I say the name of it will ruin the show. But yeah, somehow I managed to get through so much of this commentary without even talking about the slow build-up to reveal that Hannah isn't a daughter who has already passed, but is actually a daughter who has yet to be born. And I mean, Amy Adams, I actually don't know how old she is, but I feel like she looks younger than she is. She's 46? That's ridiculous. Okay, I mean, when did this movie come out? Oh, she was 42 when it came out. So yeah, she looks a lot younger than she is. So you can't, like, in those memories that we think are flashbacks, she looks the same age as she is throughout the rest of the film. So you don't really get a sense, you don't get a hint at the fact that that's actually about going to happen in the future rather than something that's already happened. But yeah, it's fascinating. We see the daughter, we see Hannah's drawing of those two people and a bird, and I was like, oh my god, wait, the bird from The Thing, but that's from after. Wait, no, that was such a mind-blowing part of the film. So freaking cool. And yeah, it's great. And one more thing that I'm questioning, though, about Louise and Ian's relationship is Louise glimpses into the future and sees herself in a relationship with Ian. So which one comes first? Does she fall in love with Ian when they're working together? Because I'm not entirely sure we saw that. Or does she fall in love with him because she sees what he'll bring into her life through her visions? And I don't think we have a substantial answer to that question. And so what happens when you learn that language in real life? Like, do you suddenly see yourself with the person you're supposed to wind up with, how you're going to meet them? And I mean, I would love some reassurance or some guarantee, or just there's a lot of unknown in life that I would love the answer to, but at the same time I feel like knowing them would change things, even though it's supposed to be set in stone. I don't know. There's so much to think about in this film, and it's so thought-provoking, which is part of what makes it so good. And honestly, if I think more about it, my head's gonna start hurting, so I'm going to end this video here. I really enjoy this film. It's not a 10 out of 10 for me, but it's definitely a 9.5. There's just so much to analyze and so much to think about. Definitely want to watch it again and see what I missed out on. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this film, this reaction. Leave a like, really helps with the channel. Subscribe, and all that good stuff. I'll see you guys soon with more. But if you guys want to watch the full reaction or early reactions to movies and TV shows, you can check out Patreon in the link in the description below. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye, friends.